Hello, this is Sean Hernon, and this is my causes of the American Revolution. The first cause of the American Revolution was the French and Indian War, which was a war between the French and the British over the Ohio Territory. The first reason why this was so bad is the colonists were forced to fight, and they did not want to. Also, another thing that pops up later is this is what forces the British into debt. Also, as a side note, George Washington pops up for the first and not the last time in history. The second cause for the American Revolution was Pontiac's Rebellion and the Proclamation of 1763. Through the Pontiac's Rebellion, the Indians hoped to drive out the British and bring back the French to trade with. They failed, but they did cause the Proclamation of 1763, which said no one could go past the Appalachian Mountains to settle, which in turn angered the colonists because they had fought for that land and they believed that they deserved it, and thus ignored the rule, and this ended up making the British angry and wanting to punish the colonists for disobedience. The third cause of the American Revolution was the Grenville Acts. The Grenville Acts were taxes imposed by the British on the colonists in order to pay off their debt from the French and Indian War. Also, another reason why they were targeted is because they disobeyed the rules of the Proclamation of 1763. The taxes consisted of the sugar, the quartering, and the stamp acts. The reason why this angered the colonists is they felt they were being taxed without representation and that they didn't have a voice or say in this tax. The fourth cause of the American Revolution was the Sons and Daughters of Liberty. In response to the Stamp Act, the Sons of Liberty were formed, led by Samuel Adams and John Adams, his cousin. They fought against the taxes, specifically the Stamp Act, through boycotts and many other things. But it wasn't just the sons. Both of them fought against the taxes. The woman actually wove cloth and gave up their luxuries towards this cause. And also Sarah Bradley Fulton helped disguise men for the Boston Tea Party. The fifth cause of the American Revolution was the Boston Massacre. Even though the Stamp Acts had been repealed, the British still needed a way to make money, and they used the Townshend Acts for that, which were indirect taxes on commerce, which doesn't seem as bad, but the colonists are still angry. And therefore, because of their anger, the Crown sent over 4,000 troops to occupy Boston, which was 1/4 of the city's population. And then eventually it came to, on the night of March 1770, a group of colonists were hurling rocks and snowballs at British soldiers when one British soldier's gun went off and caused this little thing right here called the Boston Massacre. The sixth cause of the American Revolution was the Boston Tea Party, which was the colonists' response to the massacre. Instead of buying cheaper tea, the colonists decided that they would dump all the tea into the ocean. So on the night of December 16th, 1773, the Boston Patriots took matters into their own hands. And dressed as Indians, they jumped aboard 3 British ships laden with tea and dumped it all overboard, which in turn worsened the already bad financial problems of the East India Company. The seventh cause of the American Revolution was the Intolerable Acts. Since the Boston Tea Party infuriated Britain, they created the Intolerable Acts, which were actually also known as the Coercive Acts, which closed Boston's port until the colonists could repay the money, increased the governor's power, and sent British warships to Boston, which outraged the colonists and led them to call it the Intolerable Acts. The eighth cause of the American Revolution was the First Continental Congress. In the fall of 1774, delegates from all the colonies except for Georgia met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for the First Continental Congress in order to fix the Coercive Acts. They said that they would make a provincial congress, boycott British goods, and raise a defensive militia. Despite of all this, they were aimed at keeping and repairing their relationship with the king. The ninth cause of the American Revolution was the Battle of Lexington and Concord. On April 19, 1775, war began in Lexington and Concord when Gage sent troops to capture Hancock and Adams and to secure weapons. By the time, though, the British arrived at Concord, the weapons and leaders were gone. And on their march back to Boston, the British were ambushed by hundreds of patriots who hid behind trees and stone walls. and by the time the British got to Boston, they had lost around 200 troops. This ambush showed that the colonists could fight against the British, and also that the British were not invincible. The 10th and final reason for the American Revolution was the Second Continental Congress and the Declaration of Independence. In May 1775, delegates from all the colonies came together in Philadelphia for the Second Continental Congress. The Congress assumed responsibility for the war and also gave a command for the new Continental Army under George Washington. Although in July of 1775, they did send in the Olive Branch petition to the king, which said that they would follow him but not Parliament, although the king refused, which probably ultimately ended up in the Declaration of Independence, in combination with Thomas Paine's book Common Sense. And on July 2nd, 1776, Congress voted that America was free, and then the Declaration of Independence was signed on the 4th of July, which was meant for the whole world to see, not just the whole of Britain.